Good evening. It's an honor and a privilege to welcome everyone who is here in attendance for our first ever commissioning ceremony for the officers of the Carroll County Department of Fire and EMS. My name is Chief Michael Robinson, and I'm the director of the Department of Fire and EMS. And it's an honor to be in that position and to continue to serve in the fire and EMS services for the last 48 years. But tonight is not about me, it's about each of you. The families, the friends, the supporters of our 16 lieutenants who have been given an awesome responsibility. And that responsibility is to lead the formation, the daily operations, and to assure the consistency and excellence of fire and EMS-based services here in Carroll County. So before we get started, just a few housekeeping items. First and foremost, the restrooms out in the vestibule, make a left to my left, and you will find facilities available. Second thing, this is a very life safety compliant building. It is fully sprinklered, and I would like everyone to take a moment, even though you're in the midst of plenty of qualified people, take a moment and look at your nearest exit, and in the event of an emergency, walk, do not run to that exit, and that will allow you to proceed to the outside. We would also like you to silence all devices. We recognize that there's many important people in the room, including those that may need to respond, but as a courtesy to everyone else, please silence those devices. The next thing is cameras. Please, no flash photography. You're welcome to take as many pictures as you would like. And following the ceremony, we will have opportunities for you all to get some individualized pictures of your loved ones, along with the staff of the Department of Fire and EMS and some of our elected officials. So there will be ample opportunities for that. So, with all that taken care of at this time, I would like to introduce the Metropolitan Baltimore Pipes and Drums. Tonight we have representatives of the pipes who will be piping in the members of what we call Class 1, the lieutenants and shift commanders of the Carroll County Department of Fire and EMS. All please rise. And now for the presentation of the colors, the Carroll County Sheriff's Office Honor Guard.
Say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we've watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And I would ask that everyone would please remain standing for the invocation. And it's an honor to introduce the chaplain of the Carroll County Volunteer Emergency Services Association, Chaplain Charles Barnhart.
Greetings to each one of you this night in the name of our risen Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. I got to say something. I just can't just do the invocation without looking at my fellow fire and EMS personnel, that there's probably about 4 or 5 of you that I watched grow up, and that you stood in front of me years ago, and now I can say it was years ago, with your partners in crime, and I tied those knots really tight, and some were use of knots. And I'm sure they learned that very early in their fire school days. Gentlemen, I congratulate you, and I wish you all the best. Let us pray. Gracious God, for this evening, for this new Department of Carroll County Fire and EMS, we pause for just a moment to say thank you. Thank you that not only to our commissioners, but to all our county personnel, our volunteers, that we can come together as a group and have a combined operation to provide a vital service to the citizens of this county, both fire and EMS. Father, I know you'll be with each one of them because, as I say all the time, that there's always an angel on my back, and that angel will also be on yours, our Lord Jesus Christ. May each of you know that he will be with you, and may the decisions you make be for the betterment of our county and for the betterment of our people. For it is this we ask in all our prayers through our Lord Jesus Christ. And God's people said, amen.
Class 1, take seat.
Please be seated. Again, we welcome you to this momentous occasion, and let me just give you a quick bit of history. Tonight is the culmination of something that began here in earnest in Carroll County long before I was involved, going back to 2018. At that time, a task force was formed to address the future needs of the emergency services within Carroll County. And I assure you that was not the first task force. The same thing had been done multiple times before. But the necessity grew out of a need, and the need was to assure continuity of services for the citizens and visitors of Carroll County 24 hours a day. A void that had been filled for over 200 years by the consistent work of our 14 volunteer fire and EMS companies. That work continues today, and the direction of that task force was first to, because we're a commission form of government, go to Annapolis and proceed with some enabling legislation. And today you have it codified. It's called Chapter 37, and it specifies the Carroll County Department of Fire and Emergency Medical Services as an organization of partnerships. Partnerships between the career component, and starting next Thursday, our first employees will report to work and will begin staffing at our Westminster, Tawnytown, and Sykesville stations, followed less than a month later at our Manchester and our Reese and our Mount Airy stations. And from there, this time next year, the following 7 stations. Our mission, our goal, our focus is the citizens and visitors that come through this county each and every day. 175,000 residents and probably another 40 to 50,000 who travel our highways, come here to work, and with the success of our economic development and the traditions of our agricultural past, we're a very robust economy within the county. None of this could have happened without the joint work of both elected officials, citizens at large, and those that give of themselves every day and sacrifice their very lives as needed. So we began, and I came here 22 months ago, and I had a definite mandate from the Board of County Commissioners. That mandate was to put together a system to make it user-friendly and to serve the best needs of the citizens. Tonight is the beginning of that system, and we're not stopping here. We have a direction. We're going to be guided by data and the analysis of that data. We're going to be guided by the outcomes of our actions. And our goals will be quality improvement, cost efficiency, and creating a workplace environment that is conducive and welcoming to all of our employees and will work in continuity with our volunteers. And we believe we are at that point, and we will continue with the work ahead. So tonight we're here to celebrate this milestone, which is not the last milestone in our evolution. This is one of but many. So what I'd like to do now is introduce, and everyone here is a special guest, but introduce some of the elected officials and dignitaries that we have among us and some other special invited guests that we have. First and foremost, I want to introduce the elected leadership of Carroll County, and I tell people I only have to please 6 people in Carroll County. Doesn't matter what everybody else thinks. Those are the 5 commissioners, and then statutorily, my direct report is to our county administrative officers. So let me start out with District 1, Joe Vigliotti, County Commissioner. Representing District 2, Kenneth Kyler. Representing District 3, Tom Gordon. Representing District 4, Michael Guerin. And District 5, and the President of the County Commissioners, Ed Rothstein. Also among our elected officials, representing the General Assembly of Maryland, House of Delegates, representing Carroll County, Delegate Eric Boucher. Our elected State's Attorney, the Honorable Haven Shoemaker, also former Commissioner and Delegate. the elected clerk of the court, and we thank her for her special assistance earlier, Clerk of the Court Heather DeWeese. And you'll notice the same last name, our elected sheriff, and certainly a partner of DFEM's, Jimmy DeWeese, and the Colonel of the Sheriff's Office, Colonel Hart. And we'd also at this time like to acknowledge their assistance and the providing of the honor guard of the Carroll County Sheriffs. If you like this facility tonight, it's a wonderful facility. Most importantly, it's cost effective. And we also run a paramedic program here and are developing a tremendous partnership. And I'd like to recognize President Ball of the college, the president. Representing the City of Westminster, Councilman Kevin Dayhoff, also the chaplain of the Westminster Volunteer Fire Company. My boss, the county administrator who provides daily guidance and leadership, Ms. Roberta Wyndham. Representing the state of Maryland, the Maryland Institute of Emergency Medical Services Systems, our state medical director, Dr. Tim Chismar, and our Region 3 EMS administrator, which is the Baltimore Metropolitan, Greater Metropolitan Statistical Area, Dr. Louis Panay Peralta. Representing the Maryland State Firemen's Association, their president, Mr. Ben Kurtz. I think Ben may have stepped out of the room for a conference call. Representing the Montgomery County Department of Fire and Rescue Services, their division chief, Michael Kelly. From our Carroll County Volunteer Emergency Services Association, their secretary, Mary Ann Wareheim, and their treasurer, Mary Carol Stifler. Did I miss any of the other CCV's officers? Only have what's signed in. Representing the command staff of our Winfield Volunteer Fire Department, their Chief Tim Legore. Representing Hampstead, their President Jim Dwyer. Their Fire Chief Troy Hipsley. Certainly no stranger to either the Carroll County Fire and EMS Service or to county government, retired commissioner, and I'll still call him the Honorable Stephen Wance. And Steve has a special purpose for being here today. Is it okay to say something? We ran a call probably 8 weeks ago, and Mike Stoner, our EMS chief, recognized it as this is Commissioner Wance's house, and he happened to have on board our medical director, Dr. Stephanie Kemp. We got there along with the medic unit, and I was actually next door getting lunch at the county office building, almost got run over by the medic unit from Pleasant Valley on their way to Carroll Hospital Center. Was able to get there at the same time of the ambulance, and Steve Wance is now our ambassador to let people know both about heart healthy living and about our EMS system. So Steve, we're glad you could make it here tonight. Representing the city of Annapolis, we have their fire chief, Chief Romali. I think if we have another chief out there. Making sure I don't miss anyone. The director of our constituent services, which means a whole lot of agencies, and we work very closely with her to meet the social needs of our citizens, Ms. Celine Steckel. Our communications director, we have Chris Weinbrenner, and Chris is instrumental in us getting the word out there and has really assisted us with our recruitment efforts. And making sure I don't miss anybody. From my senior staff, my EMS officer, Michael Stoner, and my training health and safety officer, Kevin Fox. Both are experienced chief officers, and like myself, they were willing to come out of retirement for the cause, and the three of us do everything from carry boxes to light cleaning, and we don't do windows. But we've been busy for the last year and beyond, working many hours to make all of this possible, and I could not do it without those two individuals. Also from our staff, we have Ms. Kimberly Dubert, Administrative Assistant, and the person that keeps me in line, she's somewhere in the backstage here, working on things, Ms. Callie Williams. And I apologize if I missed anyone, but another person you're going to hear from in a moment, who's also on stage, Dr. Burton Clark. Okay, so with that, I would like at this time to introduce for some remarks Commissioner Ed Rothstein. And Commissioner Rothstein and the entire commissioner staff, we can't say enough about them. I'm still driving around in an old motor pool car, which I'm glad to have. But last year when I needed a new car, I came before the commissioners asking for a car just for me, and I left with 3 cars. So you can't have an elected group of people, and we're still fiscally conservative at the same time. So for some remarks, Commissioner Ed Rothstein.
Okay, thank you very much, and as typical, Chief took most of the comments I was going to make, so I'll just flip my page to the other side. First, one more welcome, Rick Baker. I think you're out there somewhere. They have our ESAC. And ESAC is such a vital role. A few years back, as Chief described, the forming and the norming of this fire department came from concept through development, from partnership across our colleagues, our legislators, our community, our fire departments. It could not have been done without the persistence of everyone involved. And a special appreciation to my colleague and friend, Commissioner Wantz, as he walked through for 8 years that process. And the challenge now is that's in the history books. How are we going to now move forward? And that's what the continued partnership needs to be. We'll get there. I am very proud to have my 4 colleagues on the stage with me in focusing on what the next steps of what Carroll County's fire department is going to be. It's all about the safety, security of our community, and couldn't have asked for anybody better than Chief Robinson to be in place in leading this effort. You know, he mentioned the dignitaries that are out here and the special guests. But the special guests to me are really the families and the community that wraps their arms around these fine lieutenants that are about to get badged. It takes a special person to raise their hand, to take an oath, to selflessly support and defend the Constitution and the work that they do, knowing that it could be the last time in coming home. There's not a lot of folks that do that. So I give a lot of credit to them, and I give a lot of credit to the family, the kids, the community in supporting them. I lived about 30 plus years in uniform. It's not just about the men and women in green, but it's the men and women in green, blue, and also in red. So I'm very proud to be side by side with them all. The dignitaries, to me, aren't the politicians, aren't the partners that got us to where we are. It really is the men that are up on stage here, and it's the families that are supporting them. That's really the message I want to share with you this evening. We've come a long ways. That's in the history books. We have a long ways to go, and I'm proud to stand by those that are going to be commissioned this evening. So with that said, let's get the show on the road, and back to Chief Robinson. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. And also, I noticed who was also in the audience, I'd like to introduce Ms. Valerie Hawkins, who is our Acting Director of the Department of Public Safety and our Emergency Manager for Carroll County. Valerie? There she is. And I'll note that she came all the way back from Ocean City to be here, so I'd really be remiss if I didn't mention her. And also, I think we have Dr. John Murphy, also a member of our ESAC. Dr. Murphy out there? Yes, there he is, and thank you for coming, Dr. Murphy. Dr. Murphy serves as one of our citizen members of the Emergency Services Advisory Council, and Dr. Murphy spent 30-plus years as the Director of Administration for the Maryland Institute for Emergency Medical Services. In fact, they named the building after him in downtown Baltimore. So we're glad to have you here as well. I'd like to turn now and introduce our keynote speaker, who's going to give us some words of wisdom. And tonight's speaker is Dr. Burton Clark. Dr. Clark, who hails from Mount Airy, and I'll qualify that with he's on the Frederick County side, but he comes to Carroll County to do all of his daily business. Dr. Clark has been in the fire service for 53 years. He began as a volunteer in Prince George's County at the Kentland Fire Company, which is actually the world's busiest volunteer fire company. He also served as a chief officer within the Prince George's County system for a number of years. In 1972, he was hired as a probationary firefighter by the Washington, D.C. Fire Department. And then in 1980, after a report came out and after a federal law, the National Fire Prevention and Control Act was passed, a vision of the fire service was born, and they came to a small town in Frederick County called Emmitsburg. And here at Emmitsburg, Maryland, since 1980, we have the National Fire Academy, which is equivalent to the FBI Academy at Quantico, but for the fire service, and also called the Harvard University Graduate School for the Fire Service. Dr. Clark was one of the original staff members there and since 1980, and he retired in 2014 as the chair of the Management Sciences program. I came across Dr. Clark as a young officer in the early 1980s when I made my first visit there, and I was associated with him there for 31 years as I served as an adjunct faculty member. And I came to know Dr. Clark for his passion, his perseverance, and his excellence in anything fire service. Even though he's got letters after his name, he's far from a theorist. Dr. Clark is a practitioner, and most importantly, it's his passion in the fire service that has saved lives. He is nationally known for what's called the Seatbelt Pledge that millions of firefighters have signed. He's also known for the May Day program. He's written several books on fire culture and even a book on poetry. Recently, the love of his life, Carolyn Smith Clark, also a faculty member at the National Fire Academy, passed away, and I remember calling Bert, letting him know that he's here close to Carroll County, and he still has a family nearby, and that's the Carroll County Fire and EMS Service. When I first came here in 2021, one of my immediate goals was, let's have a strategic plan. Let's bring in not a bunch of people to hear me, but people that have the expertise that are doing it every day. We brought people in from different walks of life, and for about 4 months under the leadership of CC Visa, our agency, and Rick Baker and the ESAC, we put together a strategic plan under Dr. Clark's guidance. So I could think of no greater person to have as our keynote speaker for our initial event kicking off the Carroll County Department of Fire and EMS than Dr. Burt Clark. So, Dr. Clark, we're glad to have you, and the floor is yours.
Thank you, sir. Oh, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Wow, I hope I can live up to that. We'll do our best. The title of this is Change. Lead, follow, resist. You pick. Change is the only absolute. We love change. We fear change. Change brings life. Change brings death. If change is so significant, why don't we study it more? You see, change is baked into who we are. It's like time and space. We're aware of it, but if it's normal, we don't recognize it. For example, the Earth spins every 24 hours. We all know that. The sun rises, the sun sets. But did you realize that we're all moving at 1,000 miles an hour, just sitting here? So we're never in the same spot. We're always moving, even though we're sitting here. It gets more interesting. The Earth goes around the sun in 365 days. We understand that. We understand a year. We have a birthday, another trip around the sun. But when it's doing that, it's traveling at 68,000 miles per hour. That's almost unbelievable. So we think we're just a year older, but we've changed a lot. Our solar system goes 140 miles per second around the Milky Way. And it takes 200 million years to go around one time. So if you think you're old, you haven't even made one rotation yet. But how we react to that change is taught to us and we learn it. For example, we've all seen time-lapse film, that's how old I am, film, video, whatever you want to call it, of a flower growing out of the ground and blooming into something beautiful. By the sheer fact that I said that and put that in your brain, you saw that, and you had some kind of positive or warm experience based on that. But now, keep watching that flower, it will decay, and it will die, and it won't exist anymore. So when you see that, that's kind of a negative feeling. But we are taught that, and they are both the same kind of thing. So change is that only absolute. How we feel about change is put into us and taught to us at both the micro level and the macro level. So now, as Michael said, I'm from the National Fire Academy, and we can't do anything there without audience participation, and you're lucky I didn't bring any flip charts with me, or you'd be in workout groups writing on a flip chart. But this is what everybody has to do. There's no age limit. Everybody can do this. There's no cheating off each other. Spelling does not count because I'm dyslexic. And it's kind of a psychomotor kind of thing. So this, when I tell you, not before, but when I tell you, what I want you to do, even up here, I want you to just fold your hands. All right, fold your hands. Everybody's got to do it. And so far, everybody has passed. But now here's the really hard part. What I want you to do is to unfold your fingers and put the other ones on top. You can look. That should feel weird. That's unusual. That's not the way it's supposed to be. You can let go now. But the point is, at some time in your life, you decided how you were going to fold your hands for the rest of your life, and you've done it that way every day. And that's your norm, and that's okay. But now some wacko guy asks you to do it a different way. You have just experienced change almost at a biological level. Most of the change we go through every day, we just don't see because we're just not aware of it. But that's change at the micro level. Now, for those high-tech people out there, just this week, like yesterday, artificial intelligence, AI, right, AI, was added to the list of potential human extinction events, along with pandemic and nuclear war. I studied computer programming in high school with punch cards, and machines and type. My brain just doesn't comprehend AI. But guess what? Your fire department is going to be dealing with AI. Maybe not in their careers, but the next couple classes, they're going to be dealing with AI. What does that mean? How is it connected to nuclear war and pandemics? I'm old enough to remember Bert the Turtle. Does anybody remember Bert the Turtle beside me? Bert was my name, so Bert the Turtle. Anybody remember Bert the Turtle? He was the character that taught us in elementary school to duck and cover when we saw the nuclear flash. That was how they were going to protect us. Duck and cover like Bert the Turtle, and we will all survive nuclear war. It's funny on one end, but then during the pandemic, my younger brother Glenn died of COVID. So I understand those constructs because I've lived them. I can't imagine what AI is going to do. There is a normal rate of change in terms of the rate, volume, and novelty of change that each of us are familiar with and can deal with, both individually, our families, the tribes we're members of, and we can effectively work in those kinds of environments. As class number 1, you have jumped into organizational change that is outside the norm, rate, volume, and novelty. You will be writing the book on the social, political, economic, and technological environments you are creating. Your job never existed before. In time and space, in the time and space you are entering, you bring a lot of knowledge, skills, and abilities to what you're going to be doing. But that was then. That's not tomorrow. So this is a whole new experience for you. You decided to follow the vision of Mike and all the leadership that Mike talked about to create this new entity in Carroll County that's never existed before, and in reality has never existed in Maryland before, and to the best of my knowledge has never existed in the fire service nationwide. You don't realize the significance of what this group of people have done to the industry of the fire service. It's never been done before like this. Wow. I'm so honored to have been a little piece of that process. I feel very unqualified to pass on any useful words in terms of where you're going, because nobody's been there before. So to help me prepare for this, I reflected back on some of my previous messages. Please indulge me. In November 2001, I had the honor and privilege to be the keynote speaker at the graduation speech for the District of Columbia Fire Department Recruit Class 329. And actually, the members of the recruit class were the ones that picked me. And I had graduated 20 years earlier, and they picked me to come back and talk to them. That just blew my mind. I was just unbelievable in terms of the honor that they bestowed on me. The title of that speech was What Matters? I told the class that what would matter to them 30 years from then, in the future, was their health, their family, their pension, and career satisfaction. I added it will take courage, commitment, and competence to have these blessings. You 16 have done all those things already in your other careers, but now you're starting all over again. Wow. So you've got all that to square two. What an exciting opportunity. It'd be interesting to see how you react to that. At the end of the speech, I told them the speech didn't matter, that what would matter is to have all those blessings. And I also asked them to invite me to the retirement party 20 years from that day because I wanted to find out if I was right about what mattered. I haven't gotten invited yet. In 2004, I had the honor of being the keynote speaker at the Fire Department Instructors Conference. Now, for those that don't know, that is the largest fire service conference in the country held annually, and there's between 30 and 35,000 people that attend that. So I was honored to be one of the keynoters at that presentation. The title of the speech was, "See the Light, Be the Light." The message was that the people and events in our life can change us from one day to the next. Something can happen, or we can meet somebody, and they change us forever after that. That's not really earth-shattering. But the important piece that I added was that the other side of the coin is that my life could change somebody else. And most of the time, I don't even know it. What a tremendous responsibility that is for all of us. And especially those, folks 16, that are in leadership positions for the first time. The whole fire service of Carroll County has never had that position before. How they behave every day will influence the people they come in contact with. That's a tremendous responsibility. So, that's an old speech. It's almost 20 years old. But I can't believe this either. This year, at the Maryland State Firemen's Convention in Ocean City, they are reprinting that speech in the book that they hand out there, because somebody saw that speech and thought it was a good idea. I can't believe a 20-year-old, what came out of my mouth 20 years ago had value to people today and maybe into the future. So that's the power of how one individual can have influence on others, sometimes way beyond what we're even aware of. When I was preparing for this, actually, since I came in, I got the chance to look at this that the group put together, and I had to add some comments on this because I've seen a lot of these, and most of them are like, nice to know, but there's not much in them. But when I went through this, I was really impressed. First, with Mike's comments on the inside. Michael, your National Fire Academy training is showing. I mean, I don't say that to be funny, but the Fire Academy was about preparing people to see into the future, but do things today. And I think that's reflected in Michael's statement that's in here. He didn't just do this off the cuff. He thought about this, and he used words like leaders and trailblazers. He learned the word trailblazer at the Fire Academy, so we will take credit for that. But they were some actually brilliant words, so please read those and think about those. The other ones that I wanted to share was when I went through and looked at all the names and faces and backgrounds. This is how I think of these guys. They are the astronauts that landed on the moon for the first time. That's what came to mind when I saw this. You are the astronauts that when I was in 8th grade landed on the moon for the first time. What an amazing opportunity. Absolutely mind-boggling. So you are blessed, and we're so lucky to have you, and all the systems that allowed this to take place. And you're about to launch, and it'll be interesting to see what we learned from that endeavor. The other thing I want to talk about is the back of the book, in terms of, and I'm assuming the graduates, you collectively wrote this paragraph back here, because you're sending a message to your loved ones and friends and supporters. And it's absolutely brilliant. I may add a little edit, if I may. Because the last sentence, we want you to know our sincere gratitude and love for you as we walk across the stage and onward into this next phase of our careers and lives. Your career is not your life. The people out there are your life. They are part of your career, but never let them go. Never forget them. We have a career, we have a life, and they go hand in hand. Getting close to the end, since my wife Carolyn died, it's been the most significant emotional event in my life. And if I cry, just forgive me, but this is, we don't share these kinds of experiences, but I think they're important. I have a new definition of what grief means. I never knew what grief was. I thought I did, but until the love of my life died. That was not a difference in grief in degree, it was a difference in kind. But at the same time, I have a new understanding of what love is because of what Carolyn and I had for each other and what we gave each other. So even through the grief, I see our love as a blessing. That's the yin and the yang of life. And most recently, because it's been several months, Carolyn died back in November, I find myself feeling more and more alone, like I've never felt before. Because you don't have somebody to say hi to. You don't have somebody to say, I'm going to the store. You don't have anybody to say, I'm coming, I'm home. She couldn't come to this tonight. She came to all my speeches, not this one. But I come to love our 6 kids, our 14 grandchildren, and our 7, almost 8 great-grandchildren. More now, because I have them in my life. That's why you have to add life to that paragraph. I lost my place. Also, I want to thank all of you for giving me this precious present of coming and being with you and being part of this. Because as Mike said, I was there at the beginning, and I'm here now. And most importantly, I must thank your county administrator, Roberta Wyndham. She's probably surprised because we just met. I told her she was my substitute wife in that 5-minute interface that we had, because as she came up to sit down next to me, she leaned into my ear and said, "Your fly is open." And I said, "Who are you?" And she said, "I'm a county administrator." I said, "That's exactly what my wife should have done before I left the house." So thank you, thank you, thank you. But anybody, that made this whole event even more special to me. So I hope it did for all of you, and it's on tape forever someplace. So that was just absolutely marvelous. So here's the end. I can't wait 20 or 30 years till you retire to find out if any of this made any difference. So here's what I want to do. A year from now, let's go to lunch, right? And you can buy mine. And what I want to know is, what's changed? What did you lead? What did you follow? And what did you resist? And why did you do that? Congratulations. Thank you all very much. Thank you. Thank you. Take that, Mike. Thank you, Michael. Appreciate it. Thank you, buddy. Appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you very much.
And we thank Dr. Burton Clark for those prolific motivational words. And reflecting while he was talking, is he brings up some good points. And one of the things you need to leave here with tonight is life is short. We're all here passing on a short journey, and if we focus that entire journey just on our careers, we will have missed out on about 90% of life. What's most important is that we go home safely at the end of our shifts, and waiting for us is a welcoming family at whatever level, whatever form that takes. We can never lose sight of family, and it's really all about you supporting us. So at this time, to provide a response for the class, I'd like to introduce Shift Commander Lieutenant Dan DeShanko.
Thank you, Chief. Dr. Clark, thank you for your words. And for different circumstances and different reasons, my wife was unable to make it here tonight. But your ending story made me lean back and check my fly. So thank you for that. March 2nd, 2023 will forever be known in Carroll County government as the day the elected officials, both past and present, took a momentous step in securing the essential government services of EMS and fire protection for the citizens and visitors of Carroll County, Maryland. The elected officials should be commended for their efforts, which have been years in the making. On behalf of the station officers and shift commanders, I want to thank you for this opportunity, and I want to assure you that we will not let you or the citizens we swore to protect down. Failure is not an option, and it's not a word in our vocabulary. The word we speak is service. It's service to others. It's service to the citizens of Carroll County. The officer group has a wide range of experience. For some, this is the second fire service career, bringing knowledge and experience from other established departments here to Carroll County. For others, this is the first time they've been a company officer as a career employee supervising other career members. And in more than one instance, some of our officers have been in the career fire service longer than some of our officers have been alive. I will speak to the lieutenants in a minute, but first I want to take the moment to speak to the true unsung heroes of the Carroll County Department of Fire and EMS. These heroes are not department employees, and they're not our elected officials. These heroes don't don a department-issued uniform. These heroes are the spouses, significant others, children, and grandchildren of our officers. While some of you have been standing alongside your loved one for years in the career fire service, for others this will be a new experience. Your loved one accepted a challenge of being a leader in a developing system. Leadership, and most certainly at the company officer level, does not end when the workday is over. I'm here to tell you that your loved one will miss holidays, birthdays, sporting events, dance recitals, and other special family moments. I will confirm that while they're off duty, they will be answering phone calls, emails, text messages, and oftentimes appear mentally engaged in work while they're home. As some of you here can attest, and certainly if you ask my wife, Heather, from June 8th on, every household emergency that will happen in your life will happen when your loved one is at work. The hot water heater will rupture, the roof will leak, the car won't start, and more than once, the dog will meet the neighborhood skunk at 11 p.m., all while your loved one is away from home. You will call or text them because you are having a household incident happening, only to not get a response because they are inaccessible attending to a stranger's emergency. I tell you these things not to alarm you, but to tell you that you are not alone. My advice is to get to know the department members and their families. You are part of the fire department family now, and the family always takes care of its own. There's nothing more than I can say than thank you for sharing your loved one with the department. On behalf of the shift commander's office, I give you my word that we will do everything in our power to send your loved one home healthy and safe. Most likely tired, and every so often 12 or 24 hours later than you expected them because they had to stay at work. But our pledge to you for generously lending your loved one to the service of the county is that we may take every effort to send them home healthy and safe. To my fellow lieutenants and shift commanders, as you know, I spend a lot of time driving from Garrett County to Carroll County. I spent the last few weeks thinking about what it is that I could say that would speak to Lieutenant Mosier, with more than 40 years of fire service experience and more than 20 years of them as a career company officer, the same as it would speak to Lieutenant Ballard, whose first day in command of a company in a fire station will be next week on June 9th. What I want to tell you is something that took me a long time as a company officer to learn. Your job as an officer can be summed up in one word. It is a word I've spoken 8 times in the past 4 minutes. It's service. It's service to others. It's service to our citizens and visitors. Service to our department members, both career and volunteer. Don't ever lose sight of why we're here and what the county demands of us. It is to provide service. In closing, I wanted to share an excerpt of a speech from the Fire Department Instructors Conference in Indianapolis 15 years ago. It was spoken by New York City Fire Department Lieutenant Ray McCormick. His words resonated with me then, have changed meaning over the years, and continue to speak to me today. These words is spoken by Lieutenant McCormick. It's a privilege to be in the fire service. It's a privilege to work with people who care about other people. It's a privilege to be accepted in the family of firefighters. Today is about finding your personal spark. If you're lucky, you find it right away. The fire service holds out one for each of us. When you find it, keep it. When you find it, share it. When you find it, realize how truly fortunate you are. Learn all you can about the enemy. Train. Try new methods. Be careful out there. And remember to keep fire in your life. To our family and friends, thank you for attending. You'll never truly understand what your love and support means to us.
We thank you, Lieutenant, for those inspiring words. And yes, he did say Garrett County. He lives in Deep Creek Lake. But fortunately, on shift work, they'll be working 8 times a month. Okay, at this time, Lieutenant Ross, prepare the class for the swearing in.
Class 1, military, move!
This time I will administer the oath of office for the Department of Fire and EMS. If the lieutenants and lieutenant shift commanders will all raise their right hands, repeat after me, or do not repeat after me. Do you solemnly swear that you will support the Constitution of the United States and that you will be faithful and bear true allegiance to the state of Maryland and support the Constitution and laws thereof, and that you will, to the best of your skill and judgment, diligently and faithfully, without partiality or prejudice, execute the position of lieutenant for the Department of Fire and EMS for Carroll County, Maryland, according to the Constitution and laws of this state? If so, then please say, I do. I congratulate you all, being duly sworn lieutenants and lieutenant shift commanders of the Carroll County Department of Fire and EMS. Please remain standing. At this time, we're going to begin the badge pinning ceremony portion of the program, and I would invite the pre-designated family members and significant others to proceed over to my stage left and prepare to enter the stage. Lieutenant, prepare the class.
Class 1, left, hey! Roll out.
And at this time, I would like to introduce Kevin Fox, who will be reading the names of the honorees. And also, we will have the members of the Board of County Commissioners will be receiving each of the lieutenants once their badges are pinned on and they receive their appropriate commissioning certificates.
While we're preparing, I don't have to give, since it is graduation time, I'm not going to have to give that old graduation speech about catcalls, am I?
you in to break into work groups that could change everything. Perfect. So it was an easy decision getting you. It was a harder decision getting you here. But, besides having a strong reputation, you made a difference. Well, thank you. Absolutely. I'm commissioner. I was commissioner last term as well. Okay. And these guys were all first term. So they're living the legacy of. That's why.
Shift Commander, Lieutenant Daniel Dushanko. Shift Commander, Lieutenant Joshua Pearson. Shift Commander, Lieutenant Joseph Ross. Shift Commander, Lieutenant Richard Svoboda. Lieutenant Bryce Ballard. Lieutenant Brendan Bonita. Lieutenant Sean Borgman. Lieutenant Eric Balstian. Lieutenant Jeffrey Carroll. Lieutenant Ryan Dyson. Lieutenant Guy Gerhardt. Lieutenant Michael Hess. Lieutenant Michael Karolenko. Lieutenant Thomas Kowalczyk. Lieutenant Michael Moser. Lieutenant David Olson.
As our duly sworn and pinned lieutenants return to their seats, let's have a round of applause. And as signified by the pinning of the badges, may this new bond, which has been formed, create a linkage that provides mutual support between the lieutenants and their families at the beginning and the end of each shift. They're going to be exposed, as they have been already in their careers, to the sights, the sounds, the smells, and to human condition in its rawest form. They're going to require your encouragement, their support, and be assured that Carroll County government and the Department of Fire and EMS will do all in our power to assure that they return safely each and every shift. Congratulations, lieutenants. And next we have a brief presentation which was put together by the class. I have no idea what this presentation entails, and we may begin some termination procedures after. Hopefully not. So sit back and enjoy a few minutes, a reflection of class number 1. Members of Class 1, we certainly appreciate your creativity. I didn't quite understand that Lion King segment. I guess I was Mufasa, but when I was looking at Simba, it looked just like Mike Karolenko. That's a little bit scary, but great job, and we appreciate that creativity and humor because that's all part of the job.
So on behalf of Class 1, we realize coming in the door, we're going to have to create tradition where, you know, we're blazing the trails and all the beautiful words of Dr. Clark and such. But there's a few traditions that I want to talk about, the two mainly. So first one is we've been trapped in the training center for the last couple months, and it's been quite an experience. Early on, we set off to establish our first tradition. One day, Chief came in and he was wearing boots that the soles were absolutely coming apart. And he walked all over the training center. So we started seeing what looked like tar worked into the carpets. It was not only in the carpets, it was on every floor, apparently in every bathroom, so I'm not sure what was going on that day. But it was everywhere in the whole training center. So Lieutenant Hess took charge. We went to Lowe's. We got Simple Green scrub brushes, buckets, and we scrubbed every floor of the training center, because after we scrubbed the first spot, we realized that none of the floor was going to look right if just that one spot was that clean. So that's our first tradition. It's formally known as Operations Chief Shoes, and recruits will absolutely enjoy that one day when we switch over to that scenario. The other tradition that we want to start, and this is absolutely something that's sentimental to us, is class plaque. So I asked the Chief to come up real quick. On behalf of Class 1, on the shift commanders and station lieutenants, we proudly present this class plaque for Class 1 to be hung at the training center, our first home.
And in another life, I spent 16 years in the training academy, and we had a saying there every time the plaque would be presented. I know there's some graduates of that academy here. My, what a beautiful plaque. And we will find an appropriate place to hang it, and this does begin a great tradition. Let me just say a few words. First of all, about the shoes, there are no words. But if you had been at my house that evening and had to deal with my wife and that same pair of shoes, there are no words. And those shoes went in the trash, and I did find another pair similar, but they're operational. So thank you very much for that. What some of you may or may not know is this was a unique process. We did something for this group of people, and actually for our beginning here in Carroll County, and that is hiring people that are pre-trained and pre-qualified. About 37 years ago, I went down to the State House in Annapolis, and I was part of something new. We were created through an entity of the Maryland Fire Rescue Education and Training Commission, a governor's commission, and we began a project in Maryland called Fire Service Certification. At the time, I was 26 years old, and at the age of 28, I became the chair of that group. And today in the state of Maryland, some 37 years later, we've certified over 175,000 people. And what that means is people have credentials that are valid here in Maryland, that are based on training, based on testing, demonstration of competencies. We've become a model for the United States and for the whole world. And that system has validated itself for the first time here in Maryland with the hiring of these 16 lieutenants. They came from various backgrounds, but at the end of the day, there was a common denominator. That was state and national credentials that are 100% valid based on National Fire Protection Association standards. So their next task was, having been hired under those standards, was to hire firefighter EMTs, firefighter paramedics, and fire apparatus driver operators based on those standards. So we had to come in, we developed together a testing process. We brought in many external components, including the University of Maryland, evaluators from other regional fire departments, but mainly it was through their diligence, through their competencies, and through their past that we evaluated over 346 people to finally come up with the best of the best who are going to be beginning along with them this next Thursday. And from there, we're going to follow suit in July and again next July. And what we are doing in the process is bringing in people that are validated, that have experience. Doesn't mean they know everything. They still have to learn the way of Carroll County. But in essence, we have saved millions of dollars, and we have assured that we've brought in people that meet a standard and that have demonstrated true competencies. And that would not be possible without the diligence and commitment of these 16 individuals over the last 3 months. The days have been very long because to keep them on there, what is known as a 42-hour work week, and not have to complicate things, they've had to come in and work multiple days, 6 in the morning to 8 at night, and then some of them had to drive as far as Deep Creek Lake, Maryland. And others had to drive as far as Rising Sun, Maryland, places that we don't go every day. But they have continued to do that. There's light at the end of the tunnel, and beginning on Thursday, they will be going to shift work, and we're very confident that at the stations where they're serving, and for the 4 they're going to work as the senior level people representing the Department of Fire and EMS 24/7 from now into perpetuity. It's going to be a new direction for Carroll County, and they've certainly validated themselves, and in testament thereof, we've given them tonight's event. So, to close things off at this point in time, I'd like to call upon Lieutenant Joe Ross for the final roll call. Then we'll have the dismissal, and we invite all of you all for a reception and some light refreshments out in the lobby. And if you're into the heated night, you can go out into the beautiful courtyard that the college has. So with that, Lieutenant Ross.
Last one. Good, Jen. Woo! Last one. Stand by for roll call.
Shift Commander, Lieutenant Daniel Dushenko. Shift Commander, Lieutenant Joshua Pearson. Shift Commander, Lieutenant Richard Sabota. Lieutenant Bryce Balliard. Lieutenant Brendan Bonita. Lieutenant Sean Borgman. Lieutenant Eric Bastian. Lieutenant Jeffrey Carroll. Lieutenant Ryan Dyson. Lieutenant Guy Gerhardt. Lieutenant Michael Hess. Lieutenant Michael Karolinko. Lieutenant Thomas Kozowski. Lieutenant Michael Moser. Lieutenant David Olson. Chief Robinson, Class 1. Present and all accounted for, sir.
Lieutenant Ross, a job well done by Class 1. Class dismissed. Godspeed.
Thank you, sir.
And at this time, we thank everyone for their attendance, for their patience, and they'll join with me in a final recognition and then a celebration of Class Number 1 of the Carroll County Department of Fire and EMS. Class 1, you may retreat.